Welcome to another edition of SHR Media. I'm Sackhead Clint, here live from Freedom Fest 2015, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here with Mr. Jeffrey Verdon. And, sir, pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here, too.
And you're here speaking today about your law group. And so please tell us about that.
Well, I started coming to the Freedom Fest first year it started. Mark Skousen and I go back many, many years. I've been speaking at financial conferences and cruises that offer financial conferences for many, many years. It's a great way for our law firm, for me, to spend time with affluent families, successful business owners, talking about ways that they can grow their net worth using the tax code as opposed to investments.
Okay. And our tax code is so cumbersome, and it's so difficult to navigate. How can people protect themselves today, plan for the future, and kind of navigate the waters that have been set before them?
Well, the tax code is complicated, and it's just gotten to be so unwieldy that most people just throw up their hands and aren't sure what to do. So they either have to have a good CPA, a good tax lawyer. A lot of folks live in smaller cities and towns around the country, and their advisors, or tax advisors, have to be more general in nature in order to support their practices. When you practice in the law in a big city like I do in Orange County, California, Newport Beach, or you come from New York, Chicago, San Francisco, big cities, you've got the luxury of laser focusing on specific kinds of transactions, specific kinds of clients, because you have enough people to support that. So people come to conferences like Freedom Fest to learn what their counterparts in the big cities are doing. And when I do workshops here, I talk about the 4 or 5 or 6 popular structure strategies, programs that they might want to be looking at. I encourage them to go back to their tax advisors, their accountants, their CPAs, and speak to them about it. And if they can't get anywhere with them on those ideas, then to give me a call and we'll help put it together. So our practice over the last 25 years has grown from a lot of the folks that I've met here at these conferences because they aren't able to get back home the things that we can do for them out of our office in Newport Beach.
Outstanding. And now, does your firm deal with like specific investments, provide specific guidance in terms of where they should put their money, or perhaps other opportunities that are available to them? And do you have clients from the public sector as well? And as you're well aware, you have a lot of these public retirement programs are in jeopardy. A lot of them are being challenged, particularly in California. There's a big push out there in that state. And so do you have more public sector clients that previously perhaps thought that their retirements were secure in the form of pensions and whatnot? Now they're looking for other options that are available for where they can put their money or what they can do.
Right. So our law firm is a trust and estates firm. We do estate planning for, as I say, affluent families and business owners. We help our clients, particularly our investor clients, reduce their income tax on their passive income, interest, dividends, royalties, capital gains. And then a good part of our practice, a major part of our practice, is something we call asset protection planning. And what that means is that when we have such a litigious country, in 2012, we understand that there have been over 50 million lawsuits filed in this country.
Wow.
And so litigation, the thing that keeps us up at night more than anything, are not the taxes people pay or the probates they may have to go through or even the fighting between beneficiaries when mom and dad die. They're lawsuits. Because there's so many lawsuits in this country, particularly targeted at wealthy people, that if they don't build the firewall protections within their estate planning when we're doing their estate planning, then if something were to happen later on, they have no way to get out of that lawsuit, and therefore they can be wiped out financially. So what we want to do with our clients before we do any tax planning is to make sure we protected them from lawsuits. And you can do that ahead of a lawsuit. You can't do it after you've been sued. But we've seen many families that have been just absolutely wiped out because they didn't see the lawsuit coming, they didn't have insurance, they weren't prepared for it. So I've been preaching from the mountaintop for about the last 30 years that if you're going to become a successful investor, you're going to be picking the right stocks, the right real estate, right oil and gas investments, make sure you have the firewall protections around the assets in case something were to happen.
Is there a systemic problem within the system itself that allows for these types of laws? It seems like anybody can get sued for anything, and it seems like judges are hesitant at best to even consider dismissing lawsuits that on their face, I think most reasonable people would look at and say, hey, this is clearly frivolous or clearly just for X number of purpose.
Lawsuits settle for two reasons: doubt as to liability or doubt as to collectability. Litigation is driven today by economics. The days of having a particular cause to litigate that you want to make some policy changes, those are gone by the wayside. And there's so many lawyers that are being pumped out of law schools every year. Mm-hmm. I'm married to a lawyer. I have a daughter who's a lawyer and a son who's going to his third year of law school. So we just have too many lawyers, and they have to make a living like anybody else.
Right.
And so if you sue somebody believing that you have a valid claim, oftentimes the defendant would rather settle, even if they're right, than go through the anguish, the expense, the time, and so forth that one would have to go through. So conversely, if you remove the profit from the pursuit, if you make it so economically uncertain that they'll recover anything, then what lawyer is going to want to litigate a case where the recovery is uncertain? And so what we try to do legally is put up these barricades, these walls, so that when a person subsequently gets threatened with a lawsuit and they realize, after we've explained to the lawyer what they're going to have to go through to overcome these hurdles, and even if they're successful winning the lawsuit, they may not be able to recover on the judgment. They're not going to pursue the claim. They'll settle for pennies on the dollar, very small amount of money, very quickly, and everybody can move on with their lives. That's why homeless people don't get sued. It's not because they aren't damaging property or battering or assaulting people. It's because they have no assets to get. So asset protection planning is simply a way of leveling the playing field against the plaintiff's bar, so that if there is a lawsuit, the economics of that lawsuit are not going to be particularly attractive to them.
And are you talking more about like trusts and those sorts of things?
Well, our toolbox for asset protection is pretty vast, and we typically analyze asset protection opportunities on a case-by-case basis, on an asset-by-asset basis. But I found over the years the most effective asset protection platform that's available is the offshore asset protection trust. You see, one of the most important things a lawyer does is forum shop. In other words, pick the jurisdiction, the venue that their client should be working out of that provides the best laws. For example, in the corporate world, a lot of companies are formed in Delaware because Delaware has really good law. They have really smart judges, and so if there's ever a complex corporate lawsuit filed, they know that the Court of Chancery in Delaware are going to have some pretty smart judges and will be able to figure things out. Setting up a trust in Nevada, where we are right now, limited liability companies in Nevada. Nevada has some very special laws, and no matter where you live in the country, you can choose where you want to have your transactions administrated from. So if you wanted to have a trust in Nevada, for example, that can stay in existence for 365 years, and whose assets are protected from creditors absent of fraudulent conveyance, then you would choose Nevada. Nevada has very strong limited liability company laws. Now, I practice law in California, and California is a particularly favorable creditor state and not a very good debtor state. So if you get sued in California, you're pretty much out of luck unless you've taken some proactive steps and put a plan together.
And there's ways to do that even for folks that say they have no ties to these other states. Let's say they incorporate in California, they live in California, their business, their families, everything is in California. Are there still things that those companies can do?
Right. Under our U.S. Constitution, you're allowed to pick and choose the jurisdictions, the states that you want to operate in, even though you don't reside there. There's a big misconception by Californians that think that they can set up a corporation in Nevada, shift their income to the Nevada corporation, and avoid California state income tax. Mm-hmm. And that's folly. There's a lot of misinformation, particularly on the internet, about this sort of thing. But many of our clients have portfolios that are generating income, or they have businesses outside of California, or they may be selling a business. They're going to have a liquidity event. One of the things we can do is we can set up a trust in the state of Nevada, even for a California resident, place their portfolio which can be moved out of California, say to a Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch in Las Vegas, and then as that portfolio generates taxable income, because of the way the trust is structured, California will have no way to tax that income because it's earned in Nevada.
Okay.
And it's called a Ning trust. NING is the acronym. And so we look for opportunities for our clients to lower their income tax, which will generate more money in their investment portfolio, which will generate more total return. California our tax rate is 13.3%, the highest in the country.
Yes.
And so rather than people leaving the state of California to get a lower tax environment, they should move their assets out of California to the extent that they can and benefit the same way.
Now, we've in our circles, we've had conversations about California tax law to the point where there could be an out-of-state company or a company that's incorporated out-of-state, but the state of California will still come in and tax assets that are in-state.
Correct.
Is there a way to protect that? Because that seems like the California legislature basically says, okay, yeah, you're an out-of-state business, that's fine, you know what? But since you actually have an asset here, any asset here, we're going to come in and assess what all of your assets are that are in-state and then tax you based upon those assets. How do you protect against that, or can you?
Well, you can't. I mean, if you're a business out of state and you step foot in the state, one day, professional athletes who come to California to play their sport and win a purse or a prize, they may only be play football one day, but they've got to pay up to the tax man.
Right.
But that's different than somebody, let's say, who has a $10 million portfolio sitting with their Los Angeles office of Merrill Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
They could set up what's called a Nongrantor trust in the state of Nevada, move that portfolio to Nevada so there's no presence in California. And as long as that person doesn't take distributions from that trust, all the earnings on that portfolio are earned outside of California. And under the 14th Amendment of our U.S. Constitution, which is the Equal Protection Clause, mm-hmm. California has no right to tax that income unless the trustee of that trust distributes it back to a California resident. So these trusts have to be structured very carefully, but they can be done. Let's say you've got a client that's got a property, he lives in California, but he's got a property outside of California. He has to pay income tax on the rental income. But if he takes that property and he puts it into this Ning trust and doesn't receive any distributions because he doesn't need it, then when that property ultimately sells or any rental income that comes in doesn't get subject to California income tax. And finally, let's say California taxpayers getting ready to sell his business a couple of years. He can put his business ownership into this Ning trust, and when the company sells, it sells outside of California, so the capital gain escapes California tax. Done properly, you can achieve these results, but you have to be very careful and precise in the way that you set these structures up.
And it sounds like very few people know about the options that are available to them.
Well, they don't know about it because their advisors don't know about it. But one of the things that we do is come to conferences like this. I spoke yesterday to the main audience about the impending Obama tax changes. There's a number of very draconian, in my judgment, taxes that are going to be forthcoming if Obama can get Congress to pass them. And we have a $18 trillion plus debt. We got budget deficits as far as the eyes can see. One of the proposals that's been floated and looks like it's gaining some traction is taxing pension plans. We have over $24 trillion in untaxed pension plan money, and Congress is trying to find a way to get some of that money, or Obama is, to support some of these other programs and these expenditures. So what they're talking about doing is creating a situation where the person who sets up a pension plan, they can take an annuity starting at age 62 of $210,000, but anything required above the amount to generate that annuity, you'd lose your deduction for, and you'd have to pay tax on the growth of that pension plan. Normally, pension plans don't pay tax until the person takes it out.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways that Congress and the President are looking at trying to find ways to generate some revenue. When you make a gift, one of the proposals is when you make a gift to a donee, when the gift is taxable if it's over the exemption amount, but the income tax on the value of the asset doesn't get reported until the donee sells it. Well, the proposal that's out right now is they want to create a capital gains tax at the time you make the gift to the donee. even though the donee isn't planning on selling it, so they can raise some immediate revenue. Now, there's some exemptions and so forth that the value of the gift has to exceed before the capital gains kicks in, but they're not that large. $100,000 for a single person, $200,000 for a married person. But the point is that they see these deficits growing, they see the debt growing, they have to find ways to generate tax income. Less than about 47 to 50% of the country don't even pay income tax.
Right.
Now, many of the illegals that came in under this last wave can file for, and the commissioner of the IRS has admitted to this in hearings before Congress, they can get the earned income tax credit even though they never paid a penny of income tax. So our system is totally messed up and really needs somebody to come in, maybe like a Donald Trump, and kick some butt.
Right, and why are we going to deal with the spending issue and we'll just wtax more, whatever it is.
Right.
Sir, I really appreciate your time. Where can our folks find you? Find your website. Contact
website is www.j as in Jeff, M as in Mike, V as in Victor Law, jmblaw.com. Phone number is 949-333-8143. 949-333-8143. We have clients in almost every state in the union, so we have a pretty big footprint, and your listeners can give us a call. We can talk about what their potential concerns and problems are and see if we can help them find a solution.
Excellent. Mr. Verdon, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you later. Thank you very much for joining us for this live interview with Mr. Verdon. Excellent information, a lot of knowledge right there. Please check out his website. Feel free to contact them, and we'll be back, the SHR Media Network.